Look, and look, I guess firstly at the outset, thank you for being here today. HICWA has an incredibly important role in our society. It protects all of our loved ones, or it's supposed to at least. One of the main things is that I think coming out of here today, I hope HICWA goes out with a renewed vigour to ensure the safety and the highest standards across our nursing home sector, across all health service providers. I think HICWA as an entity and as an organisation has huge potential, but I think we have to have a serious conversation today about what has happened, what has come to light, and where we're going from there. I actually just want to pick up on Deputy Farrelly's point. You know, looking at the purchase orders, there was over 500,000 euros in 2024 alone paid on ICT contracts to a company whose managing director was the former chair of HICWA between 2013 and 2018. Are you aware of that relationship that exists between that company and the managing director being the former chair of HICWA?
We are, yeah.
And do you believe that's an acceptable level of risk, or do you believe that relationship is too close?
Well, I mean, 2018 is a long time ago, Deputy, so that procurement, the services that you've referred to, which are mainly in the area of cyber security, would have been procured many years after that gentleman resigned from the chair of HICWA. So there's a long period since then.
And was there a was there a conflict of interest declared, given that that person may have had close relationships with people who were still in HICWA from the time of when he was chair?
I can't say I wasn't involved in the procurement process.
Yeah, prior to my time, but I think Deputy, we would be very we work very closely with the Office of Procurement in carrying out any any appointments for procurement. I'm not aware of any relationship. It's a very specialist area. It's cyber surveillance, and it was done through a competitive process. I'm not aware of any relationships current or prior to that, and I have absolutely no relationship.
I know it's just you can imagine for the public to hear that the former chair of HICWA is the managing director of a company that now makes, hundreds of thousands a year providing ICT services to HICWA. People need reassurance that there's no close relationship here, and that there is every accountability measure in place.
None of us on the executive has any relationship, and I don't actually know the gentleman at all.
Okay.
So there's no relationship. But I do know that the BDO service, because I think it's BDO you're speaking about, has been essential for us. They have a 24-hour surveillance service that actually has picked up a number of potential threats to us, and it was done through an entirely open process. Okay,
so are you proud of your procurement track record?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, if you've looked at our accounts, we're like all state bodies. We have an obligation to publish any non-compliance with procurement regulations. There were none identified in 2013. There were no issues picked up by the CNAG in that year, 2023. No issues picked up by the CNAG that year, and we also had internal audits of procurement.
So the reason I ask that is because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at the description of the purchase orders and the numbers of purchase orders from top to bottom over your entity. And there was 8 purchase orders, and the description was mobile phone charges of over 512,000 euros. I just wanted to check that that's correct, and over what time period that would have been.
It doesn't sound correct. I have a breakdown somewhere of the actual cost that we ended up spending on telecoms. But look, all I can assure you is, I've actually, because we have published our telephone and telephone costs in the statutory accounts under the note on support costs, and that comes at 196,000 in total.
That's for that set of financial accounts, is it?
The
Okay.
set of statutory
Yeah, that's
accounts,
okay.
and the breakdown of that mobile costs for the year, and this is for the full staff, is 115,000. So not insignificant, but obviously not anywhere like that number.
There's a big concern out there that, you know, in the constituency I represent, there's a lot of smaller nursing homes, maybe a family-owned business, and they take huge pride in the work that they do. And there's a big concern that, you know, if a smaller provider put 1 foot out a step, HIC would be down on top of them, making sure that everything is compliant, and they'd have recommendations for them, there'd be a report, there'd be an inspection. But yet then, there's over 200 complaints made about Beneven Manor, and there wasn't a statutory investigation initiated before the RTE expose. Because I can only imagine, if there was 1 complaint about a small nursing home down the country, HIC would be down on top of them. And now 200 complaints and no action.
Okay.
How do we...
Susan, would you like to?
So we have 1 assessment judgment framework. We have 1 set of care and welfare regulations, and we have 1 set of registration regulations. They're applied regardless of whether a registered provider is public, private, voluntary, whether there's 185 beds, 120 beds or 20 beds. The same regulatory framework is applied across the board. When our inspectors arrive to inspect a nursing home, it is immaterial what the provenance of that provider is, whether they're public, private or voluntary. So
Do inspectors choose which inspections they take?
each inspector has a caseload, and they're responsible for ensuring that that centre...
So if I'm an inspector, is it easier for me to go and inspect the small nursing home where there's 1 or 2 complaints over going to the nursing home where there's 200 complaints? And do the caseloads where there's 200 complaints get left to last because they know it's going to be the hardest work?
No. Each nursing home is inspected according with the requirement to inspect at a minimum once a year, to do an announced inspection once every 3 years, and in response to risk. So, for example, there was 1 nursing home last year that was inspected 9 times in response to the level of risk that was either reported, notified, or we were aware of. So it doesn't matter. There is not a different framework for nursing homes that operate under the umbrella of a group, as a standalone provider, or under an organisation as big as the HSE.
Can I ask, Susan, who decides? Is it HICWA or is it the Chief Inspectorate that decides when you're going to prosecute or pursue legal action?
That decision rests within the office of the Chief Inspector.
Okay, and just in the office of the Chief Inspector then, if you decide that you are going to pursue an entity or pursue an organisation, do you use the Chief State Solicitor or do you use external legal firms?
No, we have internal legal advisors, and they will decide then whether we need to go and sustain extra external legal expertise as well.
And I guess in the last few years, who would have been your go-to legal advisor that would have done the most work for you?
Our go-to legal advisor for the Office of the Chief Inspector would have been a company called Beecham's.
Okay. And then for HICWA, who would be the chief sort of legal firm that you go to?
So we procure, our legal services are procured for HICWA. So we now have 2 firms of legal firms. We can speak to that separately, but it's through a national procurement process.
So
Just the name of the firm?
Just to clarify, the contract with Beecham's ended partway through last year. We went back out to the market and we procured 2 other providers.
Just who's the largest provider at the moment?
So we have 2 providers. They provide separate arrangements. We have Mason Hayes Curran and we have Byrne Wallace.
And would I be correct in saying, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is Mason Hayes Curran not also advising MES?
I can't confirm that, but what I can say is that for example, most of
There was media
Yeah.
reports in the past 12 months that
So-
would have confirmed that there's a relationship between Mason Hayes and Curran and Emmaus,
Yeah. So-
and now they're the biggest legal advisors for HICWA.
So they-
and we haven't seen any prosecution over Emmaus yet.
So-
I don't want to think that HICWA has the same legal advisors as Emmaus, and that at least if we have separate legal advisors, there's no cross communication. I just want to make sure of that.
So, Deputy, previously we had a single firm of advisors. We now have 2 firms of advisors. And as I said,
When did you get the second firm?
We got the 2 firms in response to a recent procurement process
Last autumn.
last autumn. So, and so what I would say, Deputy, is that legal
Can you
firms-
confirm HICWA's independence legally
Yes.
from Emmaus?
Yes, absolutely.
How can you confirm that?
So if we were taking
You're
action.
down your overtime.
I know.
So
Thank you,
if
Claire.
we were
That's my
taking
last question.
action, if we were taking action, Mason Hayes Curran will be obliged to, formally, they're obliged under their own rules to declare a conflict. And if that conflict was declared, they would not be involved.
But I assume you would only take action off the back of their advice.
No, we actually have our own internal legal advice. Most of our advice is framed by our own legal, we have 4 legal
Margaret,
advisors.
Thank you.
Deputy Dolan, Deputy Darda.